Happy Memorial Day, everyone. I'm standing here in front of the state capitol as the Boy Scouts pick up the flags that have so dramatically covered the front lawn of the Capitol all weekend. And it's a great opportunity for me to say thank you to all of those of you who have served in our military, and for those who have served before you and have given the ultimate sacrifice to defend our country. We're going to be forever in your debt. We've been working most of the weekend and all week in the Senate Finance Committee working on the budget. One of the things that I can do to help support veterans in my hometown is asking for funding to expand the second phase of the Southeast Louisiana Veterans Cemetery. I've spent most of this past week working on the budget with the Senate Finance Committee. The bill, HB 1, that we received from the House basically sets a standstill budget, which means we're asking state agencies to live next year with the same level of funding that they currently have. This is really just good, sound fiscal policy, and I support this general approach. This week we heard testimony from all of the agencies as well as the public this weekend as to the consequences of those decisions. And I do believe that in a few cases, perhaps, we need to talk about whether the levels of funding are adequate, particularly in the area of the Department of Children and Family Services, mental health, and education. TOPS is still currently fully funded, and I believe that that is still a priority for the majority of the legislature. One of my biggest concerns about the budget is the growing cost of health care. The Louisiana Department of Health's budget is roughly half of the state's entire budget. Medicaid alone grows in the state of Louisiana at the rate of $1 billion a year. I believe that this model is unsustainable, and that if we don't get a handle on our Medicaid costs, that it will absolutely break the state's budget. So I proposed two things. Last year, I passed a bill that established a Medicaid subcommittee that allows us to put more focus on the drivers for Medicaid expenses. This year, I proposed a bill that would require Medicaid recipients to work or get job training or go to school or do community service, because I believe that the ultimate destination should not be for our citizens to get on Medicaid. It should be to get on Medicaid and then get off Medicaid so that they can have private insurance and employment and become productive members of society, which is what I believe that everyone wants to do. Unfortunately, my Medicaid work requirement bill did not get out of the Senate Health Committee, but I have converted that to a resolution that I will introduce this week that will require the department to report out on other states' progress in Medicaid work requirement legislation, as well as laying out a game plan for Louisiana to pursue similar legislation. And although they are considering federal laws that would establish a Medicaid work requirement, I believe that it's time for Louisiana to step up and lead in this regard, and we can take our own fate in our own hands. Many of you have contacted me about Senate Bill 132, where I amended a bill that Senator Bodie White authored that would allow limited clearing and snagging and dredging for 4 rivers in St. Tammany Parish, including the West Pearl River. The purpose of that legislation is to continue to preserve the beauty of our scenic rivers, not allowing any commercial development, but rather to increase recreational access in certain areas and to de-silt those areas to allow or preclude the likelihood of flooding. And although we don't have all the language quite right in the legislation, I can assure you that our intentions are the same, and we'll be working this week on the House side to fine-tune the legislation to meet the concerns of all of the constituents in our area. This past Thursday, we had our Robotics Day at the Capitol, and what an amazing day it was. We had about 250 students from 18 teams all around the state that participate in FIRST Robotics, who were in the Senate chamber where we could recognize them for all that they had accomplished this past year. Then we walked across the street to the Capitol Welcome Center and watched them compete. And we're talking about students with FIRST robotics teams from kindergarten through 12th grade. This ties in really well with the STEM bill that I have authored, Senate Bill 225, which creates a STEM advisory council we call LaSTEM that will serve as a collection of best practices and a real focus on growing STEM in our state so that we are providing solid STEM education that the workforce needs and to drive our industries. It also creates a diploma endorsement at the high school level for STEM students and provides a grant program and a funding mechanism to solicit funds from industry as well as public donations. So it was a fabulous day. STEM is going to be a great thing, not only because it delivers high-paying jobs for our families, which helps families as well as the state of Louisiana, but it's also a way to help close the gender pay gap and encourage more women to go into STEM. So I look forward to being a leader in this area, and I look forward to hearing from you on legislation that I'm working on or things that are a concern to you. Reach out to me on Facebook and Twitter, and if you'd like to see some of those cool robotics videos, check them out on my YouTube. Y'all take care and have a great week.